A world away from its self-congratulations after Donald Trump's win, Cambridge Analytica now sits in the eye of a different storm. CEO suspended, offices quiet. Its potential undoing has been months in the making. An ongoing investigation by the UK's Information Commissioner, a Canadian, now resorting to a warrant because the company is uncooperative.
Because I think there's been so many contradictory statements, what we really need to do on behalf of the UK public, on behalf of US citizens, is to go in and look at the data and gather the evidence for ourselves as the independent regulator.
At the time, Cambridge Analytica said it was proud of its integral part in this win. And though it now denies it, it appears that part was fundamental.
Have you met Mr. Trump?
Many times.
You have?
We did all the research, all the data, all the analytics, all the targeting. We ran all the digital campaign, the television campaign, and our data informed all the strategy.
And the brand was defeat crooked Hillary. You remember this, of course.
Right down to one of Trump's favorite slogans.
Crooked Hillary Clinton. You know, that term is really stuck.
You don't have access to data that is
also disturbing, the possibility ongoing investigations here have been misled. The information MPs have heard, now overtaken by what journalism uncovers. The committee chair is now demanding Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg come personally.
I think it's in the tech companies' interest now to act to save themselves, and the first thing they could do would be to speak out, put themselves in public forum where they can answer questions and be challenged on what they're doing.
At issue here, not only the privacy concerns of millions and whether laws can catch up to technology, but also the prospect of foreign or Russian meddling in votes.
Now, the worst possible scenario is if a bad country, like Russia, teams up with a bad company that is misusing personal data to target these dark social ads in a way that spread division, spread hatred, and ultimately bend the course of a free and fair election.
Concern both here and the US and many places beyond. Nala Ayed, CBC News, London.
A key investor and strategist in Cambridge Analytica is a man whose name you may not recognize, but he wields a lot of power. Reclusive American billionaire Robert Mercer is a key figure behind U.S. President Donald Trump's election win. He and his daughter Rebecca are deeply involved in conservative causes and have tremendous resources to fuel them. They include the far-right Breitbart News, formerly run by their protege, Steve Bannon, but it's not just about his money. Well, Keith Bogue is watching this story for us from Washington. You've studied Robert Mercer for a long time, Keith, so tell us who he is and how he plays into all of this.
Well, I think people are beginning to understand that he's a billionaire who has an interest in politics, but really what he is a computer scientist. That is his passion. And years ago, when he was working at IBM, he began developing data algorithms and statistical frameworks to solve human problems. For instance, at IBM, he was working on language translation programs. But he came to realize that information, his frameworks, his data analysis, could be applied to other things, and so he went to work for a hedge fund. And that's how he made his fortune. His private hedge fund, using innovative techniques of data analysis, was generating annualized returns of 80% a year. Extraordinary. And I mention that because I think it's important to understand how good he is at what he does, how good he is at analyzing data. And now he's turned his talents, his innovation, his pioneering spirit towards politics.
So that background distinguishes him from some other conservative U.S. billionaires, but beyond that, a lot of people would be thinking about the Koch brothers, for example, in terms of their support of the Republicans. How does Mercer differ?
Well, he's extreme right-wing. I would say he's more right-wing than the Koch brothers are. He's put a lot of money into developing alt-right outlets. For instance, he put $10 million into Breitbart. And, a lot of his politics are about making government smaller. He would like government to be as small as possible. But he's also been accused of some severe and extreme racial views. He does, for instance, believe there's no such thing as racism in America except for the racism of African Americans. He thinks African Americans were better off before the Civil Rights Act. And to the extent that there is any racism among white people now, he thinks, well, that's really no concern of the government at all. So extreme politics indeed.
All right, Keith, thank you.
Thank you, Ian.
Of course, the other big part in this story is Facebook and why it didn't inform the public about Cambridge Analytica's access to 50 million profiles.
Yeah, that's right, Ian. All this allegedly happened without most users knowing or consenting to any of it. Now, for its part, Cambridge Analytica insists it did nothing wrong, and Facebook says it's changed rules in response. But as Briar Stewart tells us, for officials in Canada and the U.S., that's not good enough.
It's very serious with what Facebook has done.
I think Mr. Zuckerberg has for too long built a massive empire without being accountable.
I hope we'll hear from all of those social media platforms, including Mr. Zuckerberg.
There was no shortage of calls today for Facebook executives to come forward and explain just what happens to all of our data. But for a company that's built around sharing things publicly, today it was noticeably silent. Online, some use the hashtag #Where'sZuck to highlight the fact that CEO Mark Zuckerberg hasn't said or posted anything since the controversy broke. Facebook announced it's conducting an audit while legislators are seeking their own answers.
We need to know whether the private information, the personal information of Canadian citizens has been compromised.
The federal government is asking this country's spy services to look into how private data is being handled. And the Privacy Commissioner has launched an investigation into Facebook. Its stock sank again today amid reports that the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is also investigating the company.
When people learn about our research, they find it shocking in terms of what can be done.
Konstantin Beznazov has studied Facebook's security in the past. Even though the company has made changes in recent years to restrict data collection, he says privacy is not Facebook's primary goal.
They're motivated to get money from the data, so that's where their efforts are. How to make sure that whatever data they have, they can sell it.
While it's under scrutiny now, he says the pressure on Facebook has been building for some time.
We're not able to see beyond the activity we see on the platform.
Last year, Facebook was one of the tech companies hauled before U.S. intelligence committees over fake news and Russian interference in the election.
We are not going to go away, gentlemen. And this is a very big deal.
And that's the message U.S. lawmakers will send again, as congressional staff are scheduled to be briefed by Facebook tomorrow. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
So there's good reason to want to know where Facebook's data goes, because if you're one of its 2.2 billion active users, Facebook has a staggering amount of detailed information on you, and information is power. The moment you sign up for Facebook, the company logs everything you give it. Your addresses, your credit cards, your hobbies, political views, universities or companies you've been associated with, and all cross-referenced with those of your friends. Ever noticed how eerily helpful the people you may know suggestions can be? Well, that's why. Facebook tracks every reaction to every post, every profile, pic, song, or video you've searched for, looked at, or been tagged in. From your pattern of activity, it can know when you've been sleeping, when you're likely awake, and it certainly knows when you've been lurking on your colleague's or ex-boyfriend's profile. And it goes deeper than that. Anytime you log into an app, say Spotify, Tinder, or Uber, and you use your Facebook login, that app can get loads of data too. Back in 2014, Facebook even gave apps access to their users' friends. That's how Cambridge Analytica allegedly managed to get a hold of data on 50 million people. Facebook has since changed that policy, but still, how does all that data get used? Well, advertisers, for example, can take it to model your personality and behavior and manipulate it, or in marketing jargon, engage it. To get an idea of how powerful this can be, in one massive peer-reviewed study that reached 3.5 million people, researchers used a single Facebook like to predict their personality types and put them in categories based on how extroverted they might be or whether they'd be open to new experiences. Then, by targeting the right ad to the right personality, they boosted clicks by up to 40% and purchases by up to 50%. So think about it. If that's the effect from just one like on Facebook, imagine what companies could do with the hundreds of data points most users provide without even knowing it.